Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And every day on here, or almost every day, I read meditations, typically from the same two books. And I've been putting this video together that I want to do, but I can't find all the pieces for it. So until I get that together, I'm going to continue to do little reading meditations on here. But I didn't want to read from the same two books today. So I pulled out all of my meditation books, and I was looking through them and trying to pick some meditations that I thought were fantastic for today, or thought ones that would be real relatable to people. And mixed in there was one of my favorite self-help books, and I don't have the cover for it anymore, but it's If Life is a Game, These Are the Rules by Cherie Carter Scott, PhD. I originally saw her on Oprah, probably 20 years ago, and I loved this book so much, and I've talked about it on here before. I will put it in my Amazon store so you guys can go check it out. It's hands down, it may be in there already, I don't know. It is hands down one of my all-time favorite self-help books. It's very simple. I will tell you that I've recommended it to a lot of people. People either love it or they don't like it whatsoever. It is really, really short. So if you're looking for a short self-help book, it's good for that. And it is only 141 pages. So that's including the about the author. Without that and the summary, hold on, let's get out of the summary. It's about 130 pages. So it's really, really a fantastic read, and you can read it in like a day or two. And it goes, I got it in it says I have my name, and then I have 1999 written down there. So what is that? 99 to 09, 09. It's been exactly 20 years since I got this book. That's crazy, isn't it? And I read a little bit on here before, and I went through here, and it says, the first chapter is you will receive a body. Rule number 2 is you will be presented with lessons. Rule number 3, there are no mistakes, only lessons. Rule number 4 is a lesson is repeated until learned. Rule 5 is learning does not end. Rule 6 is there is no better there than here, or there is no better than here. Rule 7 is others are only mirrors of you. 8 is what you make of your life is up to you. 9 is all your answers lie inside of you, and 10 is you will forget all of this at birth. And if you've watched my videos for a long time, you will hear remnants of what I just read to you, those rules that she talks of. I've talked a lot about that. It kind of goes through, it's not all from this book. These are just ideas or philosophies that people have about the world, but a lot of what's in here are things that are, in recovery lessons and, steps and things like that, or other self-help books that I've read. But this one, I think, combines all of it together, or all of it together for me in a very, very simple way. One of the questions I get asked a lot, or people will say, like, this really resonates when you say this, is when I say a lesson is repeated until it is learned. That's something that just people really seem to respond to that. Like, they really hear that and they're like, oh wow, like that's been something that's happened to me in my life. So when I opened the book, I opened it literally to rule number 4, a lesson is repeated until it is learned. And so I thought I would read you the first part until it gets in here and talks about awareness and things, and then we could just kind of talk about that, because I think it's a really valuable lesson in life that once you understand that, okay? Once you understand that if you look at patterns in your life, not on some kind of spiritual, otherworldly level, maybe, but not necessarily. But we continue to repeat the same patterns in our lives over and over and over again, and there may be underlying reasons for that we aren't even aware of, right? But a lesson is going to be repeated until it is learned, until we change and we decide to do something different. And I remember years ago, I heard this, like, Oprah was talking, and she was talking about how she had dated this guy, and, like, he would go out of town, or he wouldn't be there, or whatever, and she would literally wait by the phone, like, every minute, because she was afraid that she would miss his call. And what she realized was she wasn't a priority in his life, and she had done this for a lot of people before, she talked about, right? And she woke up one day and she realized, what am I waiting around for? I am more important than this. But that lesson for her had to be repeated over and over again until she finally got it. Sometimes we don't ever learn the lesson. Sometimes we are the ones that are standing in the way. I know that I have been an obstacle for my own lesson learning many, many times. When other people will point things out to me and I'm like, no, I don't see that. When instead, if I hear what other people have to say and I'm receptive to that and say, well, maybe I need to think about that, or maybe I need to look at that. So I'm going to read this to you now. Bear with me. I'm going to put on my very, very dirty reading glasses to read this, because it's fine print. A lesson is repeated until it is learned, or until learned. Lessons will repeat Lessons will be repeated to you in various forms until you have learned them. When you have learned them, you can then go on to the next lesson. Have you ever noticed that lessons tend to repeat themselves? Does it seem as if you married or dated the same person several times in different bodies with different names? Have you run into the same type of boss over and over again? Do you find yourself having the same problem with many different coworkers? Several years ago, Bill Murray starred in a movie called Groundhog Day, and I hate that movie so much, it makes me so nervous, in which he woke up in the same day over and over until he learned all the lessons he needed to in that one day. The same events kept repeating themselves until he finally got what it was for, what he was supposed to do in each one. Does this strike a funny but familiar chord with you? Lessons will be repeated until learned. When I taught high school, I always told my students, if you don't deal well with authority figures at home, then you will have an opportunity to deal well with them in the world. So true. You will continually draw into your life people who need to enforce authority, and you will struggle with them until you learn the lesson of obedience. Teenagers often perceive their parents as overly strict. At the age of 14, one of my former students went away to boarding school. Much to her surprise, she found teachers and staff with the same rules that her mother had laid down at home and that I had laid at school. She finally understood. In couples counseling, it is often noted that people who divorce and remarry nearly always marry the same type of person they just left. Similarly, a friend of mine named Cassidy, who is a compulsive perfectionist, had a knack for attracting inappropriate men. It was no coincidence that Cassidy, to whom mismatched socks were a whore, and a torn shirt a federal offense, repeatedly drew men into her life who dressed like slobs. She was a stickler for manners, yet her most recent boyfriend held his spoon like Fred Flintstone wields a drumstick. Only recently did Cassidy begin to acknowledge that perhaps these men were appearing in her life as teachers and opportunities to work out her perfectionist issue. That is one of the things I love about this, is when it says that maybe these men were appearing in her life as teachers and opportunities to work. And that's something that my sponsor always says to me is, when you're looking at each lesson in your life, something that comes before you, this is an opportunity for growth. Anything that is challenging, anything that is uncomfortable to you, anything that you need to take a look at and go, wow, did I really behave that way? Or wow, who was I in that moment? Or why am I repeating this over and over and over again? They are all opportunities for growth. And if we resist that opportunity for growth, what we're saying is we do not want to grow as human beings. And for me, I want the best possible life. And to do that, I'm going to have to continue to, my glasses keep folding. I'm going to have to continue to grow and learn the lessons. And I'm thankful for those opportunities for growth today, You will continually attract the same lesson into your life. You will also draw to you teachers to teach you that lesson until you get it right. The only way you can free yourself of difficult patterns and issues you tend to repeat is by shifting your perspective so that you can reorganize the patterns and learn the lessons that they offer. You may try to avoid the situations, but they will eventually catch up with you. To face these challenges means you need to accept the fact that something within you keeps drawing you to the same kind of person or issue, painful though that situation or relationship may be. In the words of Carl Jung, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And come to consciousness you must if you are ever to stop repeating the same lessons and be able to move on to new ones. The challenge of Rule 4 is to identify and release the patterns that you are repeating. As any good facilitator or therapist will tell you, this is no easy task, since it means you have to change, and change is not always easy. Staying just as you are may not help you advance spiritually, but it certainly is comfortable in its familiarity. You grooved your patterns a long time ago as a way of protecting yourself. Oh, that's so true. Moving into unfamiliar new behavior can be uncomfortable, not to mention at times frightening. Rising to the challenge of identifying and releasing your patterns forces you to admit that the way you have been doing things isn't working. The good news is that by identifying and releasing the patterns, you may actually learn how to change. In my seminars, I teach that there are 6 basic steps to executing any change in your life. They are: 1, awareness, becoming conscious of the pattern or issue. 2, acknowledgement, admitting that you need to release the pattern. 3, choice, actively selecting to release the pattern. 4, strategy, creating a realistic plan. 5, commitment, taking action aided by external accountability. And 6, celebration, rewarding yourself by succeeding. No lasting change can be made, nor any pattern released permanently, without going through each one of these steps. In order to facilitate your process of change, you will need to learn the lessons of awareness, willingness, causality, and patience. Once you master these, you will most likely find the challenge of identifying and releasing your patterns far less intimidating. Only that day dawns to which we are awake, Henry David Thoreau. And then it goes in and talks about awareness. I just love the lessons in this book, but specifically that one it just stands out to me so much. You know, when it talks in there about change, that change, I think, is rooted in fear. Like, our resistance to change is about fear. At least it is for me. Whenever I don't want to change something in my life, whenever I know it's like a risk I need to take or a change I need to make, it's typically something that I'm afraid of. Whenever I don't want to look at something in my life that I need to work on, it's typically out of fear. You know, change is a good thing. It really, really is. We always, I think, look at, or I should just speak for myself, I look at change typically as a negative thing and have for many, many years. And, you know, over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, I've really tried to embrace change. You know, and it's funny because my husband and I, we just got into a discussion the other night about changing the furniture in our living room. Like, we want to get some new pieces and we want to change all this around. But he's like, I can tell that you're really kind of stuck, like, you know, sitting in that chair, like right in front of the window, like that's where you like to do your thing. And I said, yeah, but I'm open to change. And that day I like did a video over at the table because I was like, I want to try something new and see what it is. And it was so funny how many people said that they liked me in a new setting, right? So what's that about? That, like, I'm only comfortable if I'm sitting in this chair, you know? And we're talking about filming right now, and it's just not that deep. You know, change is forced upon us sometimes in ways that we don't really want to accept. Today I've learned, or I've tried to learn, to welcome change and to see that there are benefits to it as well. What I have learned in life is regarding this is that whether or not I like it or not, lessons will be repeated until they are learned. Similar types of people will be drawn into my life until I say, enough, no more, I've had it. I'm not welcoming this into my life anymore, you know? And an example of that is that for many, many years, I allowed people to not treat me the way that I think that I deserve to be treated, you know, or talked down to me, or, you know, said things about me that weren't true. And one day I woke up and I said, no, I'm done with this. I'm a lovable person. I'm worthy of love. I am worthy of good things. I only want people in my life that are going to treat me that way. I don't want people in my life that aren't going to treat me that way. There's no value to having them in my life other than learning the lesson of I'm repeating the pattern, and I stopped the pattern then. So today in my life, I only have people that I love, that I care about, people that care and love me as well, and that we uplift each other. Life is way too short. This is not a dress rehearsal. We should not be repeating these patterns in our lives that are, you know, really unhealthy for us. And if there are deep, like, patterns, like really deep issue patterns, like, please, you know, seek out professional help for that. I mean, I see a counselor on a regular basis, and one of the things that he and I talk about regularly are patterns that come up out of things I've talked to my sponsor about, you know, and she'll say to me, this is a pattern in your life. Like, do you realize that? Like, this is happening over and over and over again. And it was interesting because one of the meditations today and the Codependent No More book is about, like, releasing the victim. And she's like, you know, you can be, my sponsor always is like, you know, you can be a victim and stay stuck in that, or you can choose to move on through it. You know, like, what do you want to be? I don't want to be a victim today. I don't. I want to be a student. I want to learn. I want to be a student of life. I want to continue to grow. The people around me that I respect, that I admire, who inspire and motivate me, are people that are open to the lessons in life, and they are open to changing patterns in their life as well. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you liked it, let me know. I will read more of it and talk about it. I love you guys. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.